Hello and welcome to another episode of Composer Notes with me, Michael Colton, indie classical composer. Now today I want to talk about something, some of my history and some of my backstory in music. And one of the things that I want to talk about in particular is this. Now you would have seen this on my other videos. It normally hangs on the wall behind me on the sofa in the studio, and it's a bit of wall art where it's been for the last 20 odd years. However, this has got a backstory, this guitar, and it's very much part of my heritage, and I want to share that with you today. So what is it? It is a Vox Standard 25 electric guitar. It was built in about 1981. It came into my life in about 1981. And it is a rosewood fretboard. It is a maple body on it. It is stupidly heavy. It's about 5.5 kilos, which is heavier than Les Paul's. If you know your guitars on it, it has DiMarzio pickups with it that are slightly more higher powered than Fender Strat pickups, but slightly more mellow as well. Obviously, it has a maple neck and a usual embedded truss rod underneath the fretboard that you get to in there. But that's enough about what the technical is of the guitar. Now, as I said earlier on, this has sat on my wall in the studio for about 20 years as a piece of wall art, and I'm incredibly attached to it. I will never get rid of it. This was my first electric guitar, and the story goes like this. Now, back in 1981, I was at primary school. I was about 10, and one Saturday, my dad basically said, "Come on, Mike, we're going to go into town." So off we went into town, and we went to a shop in Maidstone called Sharon Music. Now, Sharon Music was the music shop at the time. It's not there anymore, unfortunately. And Dad ended up buying this guitar for me. At the time, it was £160, and he bought with it a Sega Sound Juno 2 guitar amplifier. Now, unfortunately, I don't have the guitar amplifier anymore, but it was completely out of the blue. I didn't expect it. It wasn't my birthday. I don't really remember what time of year it was, but it was just completely unexpected. I ended up going to Sharon Music, playing some guitars, and at age 10, Dad bought this for me. Now, this guitar has lived with me since then. Nearly 40 years now. I can remember getting it home, unpacking it. Came in its cardboard box with the funny sort of polystyrene type wrapper thing that went around it. Unplugging it, unpacking it, plugging it all in, and playing it all day. I can remember going to bed and then getting up in the morning, something about 6 o'clock in the morning. I woke up and plugging it in and playing it. And I can remember at 7 o'clock in the morning going into my mum and dad's room, saying that I've broken the top E string on it, and we didn't have any more strings then. So Dad got out of bed and proceeded to fix the guitar string, the little ball on the end. He unwound it and rewound it, and I could play it again. Nowadays, just go and buy new strings if you break one. But back then, my dad rewound the string for me so I could continue playing on a Sunday on sort of day 2 of having this guitar. And this was my guitar that I had up until about the age of 18, 19. I used to play this on and off. And I never really thought much about it, and as you do when you start work and you're a musician, you start to buy your own guitars. And now I've had many electric guitars, and from the point of being able to buy my own, I stopped playing this one, and it lived in its bag. It has been carted around the various places that I've lived and things, and it's never been played since. And since having the studio here, it's lived on the wall as a bit of wall art. It's a strong emotional connection to this guitar. I've always said it's priceless. It doesn't play, and it hadn't played for about 20 years. The the 5-way selector switch here was broken. It wasn't working. The lead socket was not good, and that was all crackly, and I never really thought of it as a particularly good guitar. Hence always buying others, and this one just kept for prosperity and for emotional reasons. So over lockdown, obviously we've not been able to do as much as we wanted to do, and I haven't been in the studio as much as I would like, and not been able to release the music and things. But this has caught my eye, as I say, living on the side of the studio wall, it would. And I decided to restore it. It hasn't had 6 strings on it for about 20 years. So basically, needed to fix the 5-way selector switch. So that's what we did, and you can see from the pictures, I've taken the plate off and put a new 5-way selector switch in. Cleaned up all the contacts where the cable goes in. It no longer crackles. It makes a beautiful sound. Moistured all of the and treated all of the fretboard, given it a good clean, reset it all up, straightened, sorted out the neck in its curvature and things, and then plugged it in. And oh my goodness, it sounded beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And I'd forgotten how it sounded. I'd played this guitar on and off up until I was sort of 15, 16, up to 18, just on and off, not particularly seriously at all, and then hadn't played it since. And when starting to buy new guitars, I've always been searching for just wonderful guitar tone, absolutely gorgeously round and rich guitar tone. And I've never been able to find it in all the guitars that I've had. And I've had a number of Fenders. I've currently got a Gibson Midtown Custom with humbuckers, and a bit like a ES335, but more rocky. Lovely sounding guitar, but not the sound that I was after. And I've always found electric guitars quite hard to play. In strumming them and getting them to fit nicely into the mix and things. So when I plugged this in, it was just this beautifully clear, crystal, bell-like sound that you would get out of a Strat, but slightly more rounded in its tone. And I thought, that's it. That's the tone that I've been after. And then it sort of struck me that in all of the time that I've been searching for pure guitar tone, my guitar tone, all of the money that I spent on it and all of the searching that I have done over the years and the frustration and the hours that I've spent trying to craft guitar tone, the guitar tone that I was after was sitting on my wall as a bit of wall art all this time. And it's with great sort of humility that I sort of almost kick myself and think, gosh, you had it all the time. But because it was a beginner guitar, because it wasn't very good guitar and things, and I sort of perceived it as not being worth much or being a particularly good guitar, that I dismissed it and consequently spent £1,300-1,400 on a USA Fender Deluxe Strat, £1,600 on my Gibson Midtown Custom, and other guitars along the way. Now, talking of cost, back in 1981, this guitar cost £160, and with the power of Google through inflation calculators, this guitar would have been somewhere in the region of £500 to £600 now. Now that sort of guitar is a mid-priced quality guitar. You can get some really good guitars at that price. We're not talking about your Fender Squier starter packs where you get an amplifier, a guitar strap, cable, pick and music book for 99 quid. This is a £500-600 guitar in its own right. And that's been quite humbling. And I kind of kick myself because I've had this beautiful guitar, what I now know is a beautiful guitar. Solid maple body, a beautiful rosewood fretboard, DiMarzio pickups that have been hand wired by Vox. And looking at some of the history, this was built in Japan, and at the time, Vox hadn't been making guitars through late 60s and the 70s, and this was the first batch out, and they went to Japan because England and the USA couldn't build the quality guitars reliably enough that they wanted. So they went to Japan, and that's why these early 1980s guitars were built in Japan, because it was the only place that they could get the quality for it. And this is a quality guitar. It really, really feels nice to play. And I feel a little bit ashamed that I've had this for so long and not enjoyed it as much as I would. And I feel humbled, and I feel a little bit stupid, if I'm honest, where I've chased down guitars, I've spent a lot of money on big name brands, when actually this guitar holds my tone. This guitar is the one that gives me the tone that I've been after all of these years. And I'm going to play it for you in a bit, and I'm going to record a bit for you and add it on to the end of this video for you, so you can hear as well, I hope, how it sounds. You might not like it, but it's my tone, is what I've been after. So the big lesson in all of this is, for me, is just not to dismiss things as not being worth it, or worth nothing, or chasing about how much things cost, because this is priceless. This guitar, to me, it's been priceless on the basis of the memory of my dad taking me down to Sharon Music to buy it, and I will always remember that as one of the most wonderful moments of my childhood. And with hindsight and retrospect and looking back, I consider myself incredibly privileged and honoured that my parents were able to do that for me. And it is that moment that set me on the path that I now am on, 30 years later, in my own studio. Actually, I lie nearly 40 years later, as someone who's approaching 50. So if they hadn't have done that at that point, I wouldn't be sat here now talking to you 40 years later, sitting in my own studio, releasing music, releasing albums and things. So I feel incredibly humbled by that process, and very humbled by their sacrifice for me. I say this guitar is priceless, but the lesson is just don't discount stuff because you think it is worthless. It's not about how much things cost, it's about what they do for you, and about how good they are to you, and how much value they bring you with it. So without further ado, I'll play you some guitar. As always, come and find me on my website, www.michaelcolton.com. Come and find me all over Facebook, YouTube, Instagram and Twitter. Let me know what you think about the guitar. Let me know about what do you think about the guitar tone. Let us know if you've had similar sort of experiences. This is a community and we're journeying together. So let's come and get involved all together. So anyhow, let's speak soon. See you. Bye-bye.